I couldn't be more profound about what I believe about people fighting in their own arena. And this uniting the right is completely pointless. It serves no purpose because at the end of the day, when we go to the ballot box, we all go as an individual. It's a secret ballot, it's private, you go wherever you're from, whatever denomination, religious belief, background, skin colour, you all go to the ballot box as an individual. And the only thing that matters is placing a vote at the ballot box. I'm talking about politics now. I'm not talking about activism, I'm talking about politics. So where I think this business of trying to unite the far right is the wrong attitude, I think it's only prevalent on Twitter, a little bit on Facebook, but the wider world, the really, really wider world is full of millions of people, and I use the analogy, sat there with the sleeves rolled up, waiting for another jab with a mask on, who didn't find anything wrong with anything, that would all possibly vote for the Reform Party and Nigel Farage. And you have to accept that they are a greater number of people than people who think differently. So if I was running a political party, if I got up in the morning and decided to try and get back into run a political party, then I would look at what does me harm and what does me favours. Because my goal is to get elected. My goal would be to, my age, Nigel's not far behind me, would be to get into number 10. So to get into number 10, you need to secure funding, you need to get branches going, you need people to volunteer, you need people to get candidates together for council elections, for general elections. You're a new party. And unfortunately, I think if the right was united in some weird way, you wouldn't have 5 MPs sitting in Westminster right now. And whichever way around you turn all the activism and all the commentating, you need people where the legislation is created to kick back against the legislation that's created. And there's only one place for that, and that's Parliament. So up until recent times, we had one man kicking back about certain issues, which was Andrew Bridgen, who's now just on social media commentating. Lots of people saying that Nigel should have been more outspoken during the lockdown time about what we had to roll our sleeve up for. I disagree, because I really believe, watching this as I do, that politics is all about timing. If Nigel Farage had decided to be outspoken and be anti-rollout, etc., you wouldn't have 5 MPs in Westminster now. They wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be there. It's as simple as that. Andrew Bridgen wouldn't be there. So the little nucleus of people that have done anything for us on a decent and honest basis, the 650 people that are in there now, chattering away about nothing, deciding what matters to us, giving our sovereignty away to the who, all those people will be left to it on their own without any challenge at all. It's very naive of people to say, Rupert Law for PM. Rupert Law, why isn't Nigel Farage saying what Rupert Law's saying? This is how I work it out. And I might be wrong, you're free to disagree. Nigel Farage is 30 years down this road. 30 years of plane crashes, wheel nuts coming off his Volvo, eggs thrown at him. Permanent bodyguard, he can't go anywhere without a bodyguard. Rupert Law can. Rupert Law's only been in the job 2 minutes and he's absolutely brilliant at it. But never forget, they are working as a team. He's part of a party, he's part of a movement. Are you naive enough to believe that they don't discuss who's going to handle what during the course of a day? You handle this and I'll handle that. That's your strong point, because if there's one thing that Nigel's quite good at, once he gets some men around him, is to delegate the duties of those men around him to handle it. If Nigel Farage stood up and said half of the things that Rupert Law is capable of saying, the mainstream media would be all over him like a rash. They'd be damping him down like a bushfire. Little people with their verbal fire extinguishers, oh, shut him up, shut him up. You need a fresh face to get those points across. Now, I'm guessing at this, but that's how I would do it if I was running a party. I'd say, you handle that, there's no heat on you, because that's what I would do. So never assume for 1 minute that Nigel isn't in control of how things are handled. You only have to look at that debate. There was the debate, I've put the video up, in Parliament, in one of the back cabinet offices, about the 3 million signatures on the call for a general election petition. Quite a few cabinet members turned up. Normally it's only handled by 1 or 2, but there was a shed load there. And Nigel Farage owned it. He absolutely owned that debate because he's experienced, he's been there before in the European Union, he managed to pull them to pieces, even calling, what's he even called that wears that hat like a lampshade? Can't remember, poor-faced bugger. One at President's, I can't remember, I'll come back to it. He called him, he said he had the charisma of a banker. Nigel Farage had been ripping him a new one in the European Union for over a decade. And that's what's going to happen to Parliament. Because he's just too capable, just too experienced and just too well researched to turn your back on him. And he's got a little posse of people around him as well, 4 other MPs. You cannot lose sight of the importance of that. And that has to come before saving anybody who's an activist, no matter how vile and wrong their treatment is, no matter how much compassion you have for that treatment, such as Tommy and I do. He should be sat in a jail cell like this for a victimless crime. That's my opinion. It's dreadful. But we cannot sacrifice what we've built up for the sake of that. And the reason I say that, there's a report that was commissioned by the government in 2019, so presumably Boris Johnson, headed by a Professor Dr. Lee, I think, and it's about right-wing activism. It's a 17-page document. It'll have took months to come up with. They'll have been paid to do it. It was done by Lancaster University. You can Google it. It's a PDF file. And if you read it, there's then a page of who they see as right-wing activists. Bearing in mind, these are the characters they've assembled when Twitter was on with someone else who was left-wing and stifled debate. But the names are all there, all the names you would expect, all the names that you're following. Apart from people like Lawrence, who came to the game later because it was 2019, they're all there labelled as right-wing activists. This is a report for the government. It was probably done because of the Jo Cox situation when she got brutally murdered. Sad, dreadful, but I think that's probably what instigated it, because by the time they commission a report and it comes out, time elapses, doesn't it? So I believe that this is why Nigel Farage will steer himself right away from anything to do with anybody who's on a list like that. Because if he wants to survive, he'd have to. Now, Elon Musk is a billionaire. He's answerable to no one. Imagine being so rich you've got a rocket. Marvellous. So Elon comes on and retweets my tweet, and it's a bit of an accolade. It's like, oh my God, Elon Musk has retweeted my tweet. And he's done Lilani, he's done a few others, Ben Habib, obviously friends with Nigel, the friends again. These people are too big to fall out about stuff that you and I would fall out about. They don't take the hump. And unfortunately, Elon is savvy and he'll read everything, but he doesn't know how hard it's been for someone like Nigel Farage to get as far as he's got with the setup, because the setup's there, the way we run our politics, for people like Nigel Farage to fail. All the obstacles are there. One, to stop you setting a party up, the Electoral Commission, the red tape in that, which is one of the reasons it'll have been set up as a corporation. And I think Nigel Farage holding on to control is absolutely right at this stage. Bugger democracy. Where's democracy got us so far? We've got a democracy that has people who don't believe in democracy, like Keir Starmer, using the phrase "let's save democracy" as part of its weaponisation against people who want real democracy. So I'm not afraid of it not being democratised at this stage. Ben Habib is very savvy, but it's only his opinion, and this is only mine, and I'm going off Nick Candy, a billionaire who's now the treasurer, who's quite happy with how it's set up. So if it's all right for him and he's putting shed loads of money in, and it's all right for people like Aaron Banks, who no doubt will cough up at some stage, he was on GB News being cajoled about it, I'm quite happy with it. As a layman who hasn't got any money invested in reform, I don't really give a shit how you set up, as long as you get some more MPs and stop the stranglehold from the other two parties. That's all I'm bothered about. And get some proper conservatism. I'm a conservative. I'm not a Tory. I'm a conservative. I've never joined a party. I liked what Margaret Thatcher tried to do. She didn't get everything right. I totally disagree with her on the minors. So if I can still preach Thatcherism whilst disagreeing with her on the minors, I'm bloody sure I can follow Nigel Farage whilst I disagree with him on Tommy Robinson. because it's not as big an issue as miners being starved out of their homes, starved to pack up work. That's a big, big, massive issue. And I was around Yorkshire at the time, so, you know, that was dreadful how those miners got treated. And I'm no lefty, but that was bloody awful. Yet we've got a former miner, who's in the Reform Party, and he'll know exactly what that's like, living in a very split community where they were called scabs and what have you. So without going into the great details there, what I'm trying to say here is you cannot afford to fight this fight in any one of, there are a number of arenas. Think of it like the World Cup. The World Cup is played to eventually have a winner, but it's played in different stadiums throughout whichever country is hosting the World Cup. That's what politics is. And Nigel Farage is in one of the arenas. And Tommy Robinson and the people that are stalwartly, resolutely loyal to him are in this arena. People like me are in another arena. I'm this neutral voice watching it all go on from like the commentary box. And there are other people like me. And some people will lean more towards Nigel Farage and some will lean more towards Tommy Robinson. What you've got to get your head round, you can support both sides. You can support all sides. You can support any voice you hear, as long as it's making sense to you in your brain. Don't be afraid. You don't have to abandon one thing to support the other. In this political climate, that is a massive mistake and not one I would recommend. And no matter how good Ben Habib is at commentating, and he's one of the best, he's not in a position of power. And it's too late in the day to start anything else up. You've got 5 MPs who are currently now growing branches, trying to get councils elected, that's providing this communist doesn't cancel the elections, getting more candidates together, quality candidates this time, not just reeling them in like sheep. All right, he'll stand, him over there with button missing off his shirt and his beer belly hanging out, can't wait to get 80 grand a year in his back pocket. No, we're not having candidates like that, we're having proper ones, pucker ones this time. They've learnt their mistakes, just like President Trump. And when you watch Nigel Farage in that back cabinet office talking about the petition, the first thing he does is get it right onto the ground it should be on. He said it's not about getting a second election, it's about the disenfranchised public who don't trust the government anymore, who want to see something new. I'm just going to play this quick clip. Listen how he commands, he literally commands this back cabinet office.
Ideas in life come from pubs, so it's no particular surprise that Michael Westwood is indeed a publican. Representing Clacton, we were third on the highest number of people to sign this petition, but I don't think the 8,000 people in Clacton that signed this did so just to get a fresh general election, because they knew that wouldn't happen. What they were actually expressing was a sense of utter disenchantment with the entire political system. And this debate can be used as a game of ping pong this afternoon between the two political parties that have dominated British politics since the end of the First World War. But actually something bigger is going on out there. Have a look at the turnout. The second lowest turnout ever in a general election, despite the introduction of mass postal voting. Have a think about the fact that the Labour Party got a third of the vote and 2/3 of the seats. For every Labour MP, there are 34,000 votes. For every Reform MP, 820,000 votes. What do you think?
Now he goes on uninterrupted until I think it's a Labour politician when he talks about the leader and the Chancellor. This is a cracker. He said, oh, we've got a country. He said people who want to invest in things they feel confident in, things that make them feel that it will work. And we've got a leader and a chancellor that are telling you we're not going to work. They've talked our way into this recession. He says all that. And then this woman pipes up. He said, oh, that's right. He says, these two look like they're going to a funeral every day. And this woman pipes up, well, you look like we're going to a funeral every day if you were taking over a £22 billion black hole. So he goes, it's not 22 billion, it's 2.2 trillion. And he hits it head on. And he just commands that room. And he gets all those points in, which will be detailed and logged for posterity, about why we voted in a petition to have a general election. It wasn't a general election, it was a cry for help. It was a cry for someone to stand up and say that to the world. He's saying that to the world. That goes out on parliamentary TV channels. That's going out on Twitter. That's going out on Facebook. He's got 5 million followers, don't forget. Not to be sniffed at. So this is where, all right, it's Elon Musk dumping in 1 minute, giving him 100 million the next. You can't dump the man who's in the most important arena. It's a mistake. It's a mistake if you want change. If you want revenge and you want to snub him because you feel that strongly about Tommy, then it's the right thing to do for you. But it's not the right thing to do for the wider world, because that man talking like that will attract the millions of people, as I've said before, who willingly sat there and will do it again with the sleeves rolled up, the mask on, waiting for another lockdown. There's millions of them. That man talking like that will attract people who have voted Labour, who didn't know it were going to be this bad, who naively assumed that, well, get Tories out, put Labour and it's all going to get better. It proves it's not a Labour problem and it's not a Tory problem. It's a politics problem. It's the people who have had a grip of our politics. That's what's wrong. And the only man that's leading a party that can do anything about it is the one there talking like that in that debate. He'll own that parliament while he's there. He'll make a shed load of difference, just like he did in the European Union. Just like the biggest representation was actually UKIP, the United Kingdom Independence Party, when Nigel was there. He walked away from UKIP because UKIP walked away from him. A lot of people who are in UKIP, once we got the referendum and we voted, bang, it cleared off. Oh, we've got it, we've won. They didn't think it was going to drag on. Because I see it like this, I stay neutral. I stay neutral because the twists and turns are happening that fast. I like to keep ahead of it as best I can. I'm only one person trying to do my best, and I'm nobody special. Don't have me down for anybody special. I'm just like you. I'm just concerned about it all. And I want people to be able to make the decisions from an informed, sensible platform without going off on tangents like, oh, stop looking for a leader. We don't need a leader. We need to get behind people who can affect change. You're the leader. You lead your own life. I lead my life. I don't need a leader. What I need is an organisation, currently it's in the form of Reform Party, that's going to change politics. And they're further down the road than anybody else. And if anybody else wants to crusade because they're upset about what's happened to Tommy Robinson or any other issues that you don't like, I mean, I could never back UKIP because they're anti-abortion. I couldn't sit there and tell a 12-year-old girl that's pregnant from a grooming gang that she's got to have that child if it was in time to make a decision. I couldn't do that. So I could never back a party like that. So that's it for me, isn't it? I don't go spouting onto you about it. It's just my personal beliefs, having done work and being a trustee of an outreach centre for a domestic violence charity. I couldn't back that. Doesn't mean to say you can. All I'm telling you is I'm looking at what can make a difference, and the only thing that can make some inroad into this stranglehold is getting people within the legislation, within the place where it's made. And Nigel Farage and the way he does it, it doesn't get any better than that. There's nobody to touch him. I look round that place and I look at him, Starmer. He's the leader of the country. He's wooden. He's not inspirational. He doesn't make you want to think, yeah, we can do this. He makes you think you want to go out there and end it all, looking for a bloody death pod like this, trying to sell them. They'll be selling them on eBay soon, won't they? No thanks, I want to fight. I like my house and my garden and I want to hold on to it. I don't want some idiot taking it off me because of some bloody EPC certificate that some batshit crazy loon like Ed Miliband's come up with. I want someone who can get in there. I want someone who can tear it to pieces, who can show it up for the batshit legislation that it is. That's what I want. That's important to me. And other issues. The tax, how much we're paying for food and energy, ridiculous. There's no need. Why are we paying so much for electricity? Proper problems that affect everybody. That's what you win elections on. Not basically screaming from the rooftops about an agitator that should not, in my view, morally be incarcerated at this point. It's wrong, it's morally wrong. I don't know how you sleep at night. because it's a political appointment that's put in there. The Attorney General is a Labour person working for the Labour Party who decided to do that. So that's political to me. But I'm only putting information out so that you can mull it over in your mind what I've said. See if I've put a perspective there you weren't considering. Have I, oh yeah, I never thought of that. That's all I can do, isn't it? And that's why I don't get down about it. Because while I see him doing that, which is an issue that could have been turned into a nothingness. Remember that, because you're not going to get a general election. Even if you're 10 million votes, you're not going to get one. It's only going to be flipped about. And as you can see with the stuffed shirts that are sitting in that room, oh, we'll just talk about this, just here it is. And then they'll all go off for a discounted lunch, won't they? And jump in some transport that they'll get their expenses claimed back for, the sickening bunch. That man is the thing we need now. He's the catalyst. He's the burning torch. He's the Olympic torch if you want to change your country. My opinion.